Hey, church family, I've got a question for you, and my question is, what do you do when you don't know what to do? The answer? Trust God. In Exodus chapter 1, we're told about the time when the children of Israel were living in slavery in Egypt. But the problem for the Egyptian king was that they were growing so large in number that he feared that one day they would rise up in revolt. And so he initiated his own plan for population control. We're told in Exodus 1:16 that the king commanded the Hebrew midwives, "When you help the Hebrew women as they give birth, watch as they deliver. If the baby is a boy, kill him. If it's a girl, let her live." The Hebrew midwives were stuck between a rock and a hard place. The Egyptian king was powerful. To disobey him would be dangerous. What should they do? Verse 17 tells us what they did. We're told that because the midwives feared God, they refused to obey the king's orders. They allowed the boys to live too. Try and put yourself in the place of those midwives. As slaves, their people were already abused and mistreated at the hands of the Egyptians. They had zero power. And now the most powerful man on the face of the earth was commanding them to kill their own people's innocent children. What would you do, knowing your own life was on the line? What the midwives did was to decide to trust God. Courageously, the midwives stood up to Pharaoh by saying that Hebrew women just gave birth too quickly. They couldn't get in there in time, so the baby boys lived. You can imagine how furious Pharaoh was to hear this lame excuse. Yet even at the risk of their own lives, the midwives chose to obey God rather than Pharaoh. The midwives' bold stance against Pharaoh's command is a classic example of when and how to practice civil disobedience. The Apostle Paul in Romans 13 clearly calls the Christian to obey the government and the laws of the land. So when, if ever, are we to disobey? The answer is when the government begins to push us to break God's law. That's when we must make a choice, to obey the ruling authority or to obey God. The midwives chose God. With their lives on the line, they stood up for what they knew was right, and God blessed them for it. Maybe the situation you're facing right now isn't a matter of life and death. Maybe it's the pressure to take a shortcut, bend the rules, or turn a blind eye to something you know to be wrong. I pray that the next time you're forced to choose between worldly pressure and doing what's right, that you'll remember the midwives' courageous faith, and that you'll choose to trust God and obey Him. Amen.